Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Chair. I'm going to make a summary of some of the discussions that we had, and especially a summary of key recommendations that came from the different commissions. The intention is not to repeat everything the Commission has said here. Otherwise, we're going to take another 3 hours. And the intention is also not to repeat everything that, that we had as discussions in the last 3 days. It will take us a long time. So even though I do not mention some of those things, it's not as if they're not important or we are not going to react to them, but I'm just lifting 2 or 3 points from each of the commissions to stir us up. Now, we started our meeting with the HOD of the province welcoming us very appropriately, and I think we settled in quickly. DDG Mthembu outlined our purpose. The importance for me there is the fact that having looked at the purpose of this 3-day Lekgotla, have we achieved the purpose for which we set before we came here? Did we achieve our objectives? DG followed up by actually outlining, if I counted properly, at least 9 priorities for NEAC. Some of those priorities were part of the things that we actually ended up discussing in the commissions. Some of them we had discussed previously and no action has been taken. Others we did not discuss. So part of what we're going to do as the DBE team is to ensure that we keep our eyes on those 9 priorities. We identify those that we had discussed previously, which must come back on the improvement plan, because DG, after listing the priorities, indicated that NEAC must put together a proper plan to ensure that these priorities are met. If I may remind you, one of those priorities had to do with the whole issue of establishing the exam board. We did not discuss anything about the exam board in this meeting for the last 3 days because the exam board has been discussed, the concept paper has been done, it was discussed a couple of years ago, and we are still on the trajectory of making sure that we complete whatever the recommendations are. So that's just an example of one of the things I'm indicating, that some of the priorities have been discussed previously, but the actions have not been concluded. Others we discussed now, and a few we did not discuss. So that's what DG, conscientized us. Then there were a lot of presentations, and because our topic is about, enhancing the present while keeping an eye on the horizon, a lot of what was presented also had to do with looking at what we're doing currently and also reflecting. So all the presentations that came that had to do with perspectives, different perspectives of what public exam is, those perspectives were actually helping us to reflect. So the intention of the perspective of the quality assurer, the perspective of the union team reps, the perspective of an academic, it was just getting perspectives from different stakeholders in the public that can help us introspect and reflect better, and I think we did that. Our colleagues from the Kenyan National Examination Council also presented from their own point of view what they're doing to share their practices, but I think very key was the issue of the competency-based assessment, which they have started implementing, which we haven't. And we could see that there's need for more conversation. Now, a Lekgotla will not complete everything that you need, but sometimes a Lekgotla will give you an indication of target areas to pursue. So don't leave here saying, no, we didn't do that, we didn't do that. You are not going to be able to do that, even if we did not have a late night yesterday. That's not an excuse though. But even if that wasn't the case, we would not have been able to discuss everything. But I think we got the pointers. That is the most important thing. We got the areas that we must follow up. We know we must follow up with Kenya. We want to speak to them a little more. We know more what to do with our mother tongue-based bilingual education. We know the people to contact who spoke to us. Some of us have not met these people previously, but we got to meet them here. I'm not sure how many of you used this opportunity to network as well. How many of you even brought your business cards? And how many of you even exchanged them? Now, those are all your covert agenda of Lekgotla. There are overt agendas and there's covert agenda. And for exams people, I believe you should know covert agenda because that's how you operate. So if you came here and you didn't meet any new people, you didn't get any new contacts, you didn't do anything and you're going back to your province exactly the same way you came, need I say more? Then we were challenged to appropriately accommodate learners with special educational needs. We're not repeating the presentation, but we were challenged and we're taking up that challenge. We were enlightened with respect to online writing and marking as exemplified by UNISA, but very openly they also indicated their challenges. So because we're looking in that direction, UNISA is just across the hill from where we are at DBE. We are going to engage them. We're going to call them to our building. It's easier to come down than to go up. But we'll bring them down. We also have nice food. We'll invite them. So we'll talk with them. We'll talk online. We'll find every way. So we got their contacts as well. We have been conscientized on our role as examination managers on how we ensure accountability amongst ourselves as officials. I like the point of holding each other accountable. And I think that is one good point that you can applaud NEAC for. We always hold each other accountable. Now, we received a lot of information from our colleague on the Second Chance Matric program, and those of us who may not have known much, now we have learned a little bit more. But I think the important thing is, how do we as exam managers assist to ensure that that program succeeds? Because we are in this together. Remember, they're trying to clean up the mess that we could not. So somehow we are okay, I wouldn't say that we are responsible for completely creating it anyway, but we tried to clean it up and we couldn't, and they're picking it up again and trying to clean it up. So let's see what we can do there. Now, I'll go very quickly through the summary of key recommendations from the commissions, and I've just picked one or two from each commission. Commission 1 is the Digitization Task Team, and they are talking about establishing a task team to manage this migration. I think that's very important. If you don't have a group of people who are dedicated to work on this, it's not going to happen. Most of the time, we come, we discuss, and some of the things don't happen precisely because there aren't any group of people that are pursuing it. So, and this should not be a DBE thing. It must be DBE PEDs. We want a task team. We want a person who will manage, be in charge of chairing and driving that process. Electronic distribution of question papers to PEDs, that's step 1, and step 2, transfer to learners. It's still on the cards between 2023 to 2026. By the way, 2023 is short term, 2024 is medium, 25-26 is long term. In marking, we are going to be piloting new subjects this year. And also this team needs to do an appropriate costing of this entire project for each of the years, 2023, 4, and 5, to know how we're going, because this really needs money. Commission 2, number 1, please gazette Annexure M. I think that is clear in their recommendations. Commission 2, also number 2, enhance proactive ways of curbing irregularities. And they mentioned a couple of ways there: collaboration with security agencies or intelligence agencies, advocacy, communication strategies, etc., etc. So we're building on our proactive ways rather than just being reactive. Then build capacity of DBE and PEDs to enhance investigative skills. And of course, in terms of the investigative unit, we are looking at actually developing a concept paper for that, the establishment of that unit. That is what we must do in 2023. Commission 3, they need to conduct an audit of the status of all the SOPs. We do have standard operating procedures. The thing is that as we continue to implement exams every year, or to administer exams every year, there are new things that come to play. So on an annual basis, each task team must update their standard operating procedure with regards to certain things that possibly were not there or not clearly outlined that they can outline. Know that we are not changing policy in terms of standard operating procedures. SOPs are derived from policy. There are norms and standards that are just more explained, so that the procedure tells exactly the how, the what, and the when, and why, which you will not get in policy. So that commission has committed to do that. Also establish a core team to mediate this standards across provinces, so that we all understand these things in the same way. And then the conversion of manual monitoring instruments to electronic monitoring instruments, especially those that can be so easily converted or made into Google Forms. Commission 4 on SBA have indicated it will be important for us to nominate or appoint SBA coordinators across all districts. If there isn't somebody to coordinate, SBA has also dominated a lot of the conversations here, assessment, and whatever. If we don't have people managing and coordinating that who have been given that responsibility, then it's difficult for us to actually achieve whatever we have recommended to achieve in the short as well as in the long term. Mediate the guidelines as well for the monitoring, mediation of guidelines and monitoring the implementation to subject advisors and teachers. Now we do have guidelines on SBA. Actually, they were already published, and we got public comments. They were just supposed to be gazetted, but we felt that before we go and gazette, we need to kind of trial these things on this policy. So that's why we converted them to guidelines and said, let's trial this out so that we see if there's any of those things that's not really going to work in the system before we gazette. Actually, otherwise, coming from public comments, we had received the approval to gazette. So it's not like there is nothing on the table. It's just being held back for this trial period of a year or two before we now go and gazette, so we don't go and put something that is not implementable. Now, so we have realized most people have not been, they don't know what is in the guidelines, and therefore these guidelines need to be mediated. Translate SBA guidelines into policy. That will happen in the long run after the 2-year trial period. Commission 5 looked at staff capacity and exam costing, basically resources to champion all our processes. And number 1, we are saying we need to realign and modernize the existing organizational structure from national, provincial, district, circuit level. So there must be an alignment. Now, if I'm doing a function at the DBE, I must find my counterpart at the province that I can relate to. I can't go to my counterpart and the person is not doing what I'm doing somewhere else or doing something else. So we want that kind of alignment on that structure. And so currently DBE has already sent out an audit instrument to do that audit, so that on the basis of that we know exactly what is happening in provinces and DBE, and then they can put together a firm proposal. But we do have something on the table. We were not starting from the beginning. Staff capacity and tools of trade was also an issue that was brought to the fore by this group, and they recommended that there must be an audit of the staff capacity, and provinces must fill critical posts, and I believe must also purchase critical resources. And also they must evaluate skills, capacity, and identify the gaps. That must be done in 2023 and ongoing. Exam costing, we also were not starting from the beginning. We looked at the cost of exams across provinces per exam, and including DBE. So here, the recommendation from the team is that there must be a full audit, which is actually going on now, or the information for the audit has gone out, so provinces can start doing that. So once the data comes back, it will be analyzed, and we will identify the highest cost drivers and act accordingly. So if we find it's question papers, then we will implement a particular, because the recommendations are there with regards to what should be done with regards to each. If it's marking, then we know we must push e-marking as quickly as possible. Now, Commission 6 were those who were looking at the horizon. It was the Abrahams, look as far as your eyes can see. I give you all of that land. So they were free to imagine, think, come up with anything. However, I think we have picked 2 key things that they have indicated in their report. One is the fact that the strengthened curriculum is not a new curriculum. So basically we are saying this group is telling us we must make sure that our curriculum is strengthened. So that process which is going on, we must back it up, and I think the entire messaging that must come across must not be about new curriculum, it must be about strengthening what we have, which actually includes infusion of skills and competences. And I think that is where we will also speak to Kenya as much as we can. Then the issue of school-based assessment was also highlighted by this particular group, and there was a proposal with regards to reviewing the form and structure of SBA, because we've actually kind of left the initial purpose of the SBA and now is for something else, and we are just testing and retesting learners. So the whole review of the structure and form of the SBA is part of what is there. Now, this group had indicated that we should be starting from grade 12 to ensure that the system is driven, and other people have different opinions, but that is not for discussion and argument now. What will happen now is DBE will sit down, consolidate all the recommendations, not only those that I have summarized here, consolidate all the recommendations. Some of the recommendations that are the same as what we had in previous Lekgotla, we are not going to rehash them. We're going to discard them. We're just going to keep what we had there. But if they are in additionals to those, we will put them in. And then the recommendations that were from our previous Lekgotla that are not here and have not yet been achieved, we're also going to move them. So basically, we are going to consolidate the 2023 Lekgotla recommendations by adding the ones from the previous as well that are still relevant, and that is what is going to go out to NEAC as the Lekgotla recommendations for 2023. Thank you.